Hello, good evening. It's Thursday, the 16th of July, 2020. It's 9:30 p.m., which means that if you're watching us, you're not watching Netflix. It's the holiday special, vacation special, broadsheet on the telly. We're on location. Some of us are on location. While I do a bit of a technical thing, though, I'm going to hand over to the Queen. Oh, no, now it's
Hello,
telling
good
me.
evening. It's Thursday,
See,
the
now this
16th
happens.
of July.
I have to do this.
2020.
There we go. All the feedback. Sorry about that. So now I'm going to pass over. We're going to say hello to the Queen of Crumlin, who's currently the babe of British Bay. Vanessa,
Hi
say
everyone.
hello.
Hello everyone. How are you?
Hi, Vanessa. Good to see you.
I know. Good to see you all too.
How's the weather down in British Bay?
It was lovely today. Very warm, but there's no wind. You wouldn't get any sailing done today. But it's very flat. If you're a nervous kayaker, it's perfect for you.
Well, aren't you staycationing like the best of them? We also have the King of California. I forget your title, Derek. It just winds me up when we have
The
titles.
Californian King.
The California
Well,
King.
Well, last week you were calling me a mattress or something. So anything goes.
He doesn't go on holiday because they go on vacation in the US, but he's already on holiday. He's in California. Hello, Derek.
Hi, Neil.
I'm good. Thanks for asking. I'm not here on my own, as you can see. I'm in the Alicante region of Spain. I'm in the establishment, the very well-known establishment known as Paddy's Point, and I'm here with the proprietors, two well-established Irish folks, Hazel and Rory.
Hello.
How you doing, guys? All right. How are you?
Hi
Hi, guys.
Hazel. Hi Rory.
So we're celebrating Spain. I don't know what we're celebrating, but we're certainly not celebrating the lifting of travel restrictions from Ireland. But I thought we might get a view from Spain. But maybe we'll ask. We'll jump over to Hayes and Rory and ask them what life has been like here in the Costa Blanca region under lockdown, and what it's been like. What it's been like in the bar.
Yeah, it's strange. We've been open since the beginning of June. We closed the middle of March, so we were closed for quite a long time, which is very unusual. But we're excited to open. But since we've opened, it's very gradual business. It's very slow. Really, our first month we were working at about 15% of our business, which is this time of the year we should be at full capacity with tourists and all, but we're nowhere close to that. But it's gradually growing. But we're getting along with it. We're doing things correctly here. We've had a good time here, as in people have behaved very well, and people have accepted the COVID restrictions that we've had here, and we had very harsh restrictions here, but they've worked for us now. And now that we're open, people are behaving and doing that, and the tourists who are coming are also aware and behaving along with that, with masks and everything that's involved, sanitizing and all sorts. So we're gradually getting back to some business, but we're still way behind what we should be doing, way behind.
And kind of when you look down the terrace here, like this is July, so this is peak season, so normally it would be booming. But I'm seeing a lot of socially distanced tables. That looks like you've been doing this for quite some time. So do you want to maybe talk about what the Spanish authorities have made you do, what it's been like adapting to that, and whether the tourists or the expats who live here, how they've kind of adapted to it?
Yeah, Jason.
Okay, so when we opened first, the restrictions required us to have 2 meters between all our tables outside. So we're really lucky, and we've got ample terrace space and ample outdoor space, so we could do that quite easily. And inside, actually, when we opened it first, we couldn't open inside at all, could we?
That's correct.
We couldn't have people inside at all for the first week or two. So now we're actually back to 75% of our interior capacity. That's what we're allowed. 100% of our capacity outside, but with the tables distanced. Actually, they've reduced it to 1.5 meters now. So actually, even with 1.5 or 2 meters, people feel really comfortable. People feel good with that, when you have that space between tables, especially outside. We are finding that since we opened, people are reluctant, even though we're open inside now, we've got to actually have a band on inside tonight. Tables are really well spaced out inside and everything, but people are reluctant to go inside. They seem to feel more comfortable outside. Whether it's the fresh air or it's just the holiday feel, they always want to sit outside anyway. So
And is it
what else?
strictly like in terms of enforcement? Like, do you see Spanish police come along, or somebody from the authorities come along, kind of to make sure that you're adhering?
Yeah. The authorities here, they're still going around the towns and cities mainly. They're going around. They're walking the streets. They're checking the bars. They're going into the bars. If they see anyone trying to get up and dance, you got to sit down. No dancing is allowed. You're not allowed to stand. You're not allowed to stand in the bar. Everyone has to be seated, and no dancing. So,
But you can sit at the bar.
But
You can sit at the bar.
you can sit at the bar. So you have to really go in, sit down, and that's it. No dancing or don't enjoy
Any
yourself.
sing song? You're allowed to
You're
sing
allowed
song?
to. You're allowed to sing, but you have to sit and sing.
We had loads of
Okay.
people on like kind of bum
But-
dancing on stools.
but,
Oh,
uh,
yeah. Sit down.
But the police are keeping a control and everything, and they're watching everything, and it looks like this is going to continue for the foreseeable future anyway, for the next while. But in saying that, we've all accepted that, and we're even tourists and all, we're getting on with it. You can work around it. Okay, the dancing part, that does take away from an atmosphere bar. That is difficult to create an atmosphere still when everybody has to stay seated.
And what's the capacity normally, Rory? Of your bar and restaurant? What's the normal
Inside,
capacity?
Our official normal capacity is about 150 inside, so we can have 75%.
That's a big bar.
But
Yeah,
it's
and then
really big,
we'd have 250 outside in the summer. So you're close to 350 really capacity all around.
Yeah.
Where it's different now. We
Yeah,
No,
would you also miss the GA, and the soccer not being on?
Yeah.
That would get lads in on a Sunday, wouldn't it?
you could imagine here the GA Championship especially is huge for us every year. Every Saturday and Sunday we have show every game that we can show that's on TV. And you get all the families here every Saturday and Sunday. They will come an hour or two before a match. They come with
In
their
the
flag,
jerseys.
the jerseys, all the young kids wearing their jerseys. So
And what kind of bar is it? Like, is it a Cork bar or a Kerry bar or a Northern bar? That's very important.
you like
Right.
Hazel's
Carlo.
hockey. I'm
Carlo.
Wisconsin. Carlo. Well, no, I think
You wouldn't have very many visitors on a Saturday and Sunday from Carlo in your bar.
You get lots of drinkers though. You get lots of drinkers.
And where are
We-
you from, Rory and Hazel? Where are you guys from?
I'm from Roscommon,
Oh
Balladreen.
yeah,
Roscommon.
yeah.
I'm
And
from Clara,
Where-
County Offaly.
All right, so okay. Well,
Yeah.
you wouldn't see much from them either. The last few years.
Good drinkers too, though.
Well, they're watching
Very few,
everyone else.
Vanessa.
Yeah.
Very few Cork people either. Cork have had very little to show about. the last
Excuse me, we
decade.
had a great year last year, and while I think of
Apart-
it, sincere
apart from the
condolences to the. Excuse me, and we lost one of our best today, Kieran. He died of cancer. He played in the 2010 final. Great
Very
defender.
sad.
Yeah.
Very sad.
So condolences to all the Cork supporters, his club, and especially his family, because he's a huge loss.
Absolutely.
Anyway, don't mean to down everything.
I'm just wondering though, because you're hearing the news at home about the bars are open, but they're not open. If they're serving a meal, they're open, and they've been pushed back now to the 10th of August. Were you fearful at the time when it was coming up to the time when you could reopen, and given how severe coronavirus was and how rampant it was in Spain, were you fearful yourselves, just as human beings, never mind as bar owners, of what that would mean for you, for your staff, for how are you going to manage customers coming in? Did that cross your mind, or was?
Oh, there's a lot of a lot of fear factor really. As you said, for our sales business wise, yes, there's the fear of no business, but But there was also the fear when we do open, trying to do everything right, make sure we do all the restrictions correctly. There's so many new restrictions. Everything's changed so much. You know, you want to make sure that we do it right, and that was a worry. You know, well, as soon as we got open, we started after a week. We started to feel more comfortable. It becomes normal way of working, of disinfecting,
The
of
new
sanitizing,
normality.
and we're in the new normality. You get used to it. The fear sort of went away once we started moving around a bit and realized that no, we don't have throngs of people attacking us or coming at us. It's well spread out and everybody's well behaved. So that fear has gone away, if you like.
So, like, I mean, I know this particular region, this falls into the Valencia region, and the case level here is very low, and active cases at the moment is. There was a day the other day where there was no cases at all for a population of 5 million.
Yeah.
But when you look at what's happening in Ireland and the contrast there, where it certainly seems like there's no system, there's no methodology to bars opening. I mean, if you're allowed to have a meal, we don't understand scientifically why that matters. What would you be saying to NFAD or to the government about bars reopening in Ireland? Case levels are very low in Ireland. Face masks aren't mandatory, or they are.
They are now, I think.
They're going to be made
Yeah.
mandatory.
Yeah.
That's been talked about. Where is it going wrong in Ireland, or is it foolish for bars here? What do you think is, where does the land lay?
I can't understand why the bars are not allowed open now at this stage in Ireland. They should be able to, with the restrictions in place. I know it's difficult. There's a lot of small bars in Ireland. And I really feel the small bar, that's where the Irish bars come from, is the small bars, the nookie bars. It's very difficult for them to open now. And they seem to be the ones getting punished the most now. Whereas the bigger, newer bars are able to open because they have space and can do the food. I just don't think it's fair or right. Yeah.
Hasn't that been a symptom of this whole thing from the start? Like the bigger multiples, or like Aldi, Lidl, were all able to open. Like the Dunn stores were able to sell clothes, but the smaller boutique had to wait.
Yeah.
The smaller coffee shop, like the McDonald's, was able to open, whereas the small little restaurant, family-owned place, couldn't open. It's been a symptom of this from the start, though. I thought.
I never thought I'd agree with one Healy Ray's, but I saw him speaking in the Dáil this morning where he said, what's the difference between a guy drinking a pint of Guinness with a toasted cheese sandwich in one hand, and that's allowed, and a fella in the next pub next door with a pint of Guinness and no cheese sandwich, it's not allowed. And like the man was speaking perfect sense. Either the place isn't ready to open up yet, or like what's good for one is good for the other.
If everybody could just see, and we were all nervous here opening up the hospitality, which we were actually allowed open on the 11th of May. We didn't, because but technically if we had wanted to, we could have opened on the 11th of May. We chose to wait, with Paddy's point, for an extra couple of weeks. That was our own personal choice, but in general, in most of the country, bars and restaurants were allowed open on the 11th of May, and everyone was nervous. Owners were nervous, customers. I mean, the authorities were nervous, the police. Nobody knew how it was going to go. And I would say, for the first couple of days, there was a few problems because a load of people just went on the lash. That was like a load of people went on the massive lash and whatever, like literally day one and day two. And then after that, honestly, like, it's just been so good. And every single Irish person, and well, there's not actually that many, but we've had a few more this week, gradually arriving. But and any visitors who are coming here, I think we're kind of used to it now, that bars, restaurants, cafes, everything is open. You can go and have a coffee, you can go have whatever. For the last couple of months, go out. The only thing that our discos are open now, are they? I'm not sure.
Discos are allowed open, but again, no dancing is allowed. So
nightclubs,
No shifting.
So you have to sit down in the disco. So try that one.
I mean,
hard to get the shift that way.
Yeah. Eye contact.
Oh yeah. And come here, guys. What did you do over lockdown? Did you just stay at home, or did you go in and do renovations, or?
Literally, you had to stay at home. We had a
Yeah.
very strict lockdown, so basically they told you get into your house and stay in your house, and that was it. You're only allowed to walk a couple of yards from your house
With a dog.
With a dog. You aren't allowed to just go for a walk. You had to go out. You had to have an animal.
There was 2 reasons to leave the house.
That was at the beginning.
Yeah. Well, it's the first few weeks, yeah. The 2 reasons to leave the house: to go to the supermarket or the pharmacy. And you had to have like a receipt and proof that you'd, bought something. And it was like, they were out in the streets fining everybody.
Basically what happened here was on March the 13th, Friday the 13th, the local police came into the bar in the afternoon, said, you're closed tonight at 12 o'clock, very strict. If you stay open past that, you'd be arrested and locked up. And so we were closed. They came at 12 o'clock, every bar in the whole area, they sent police out everywhere. Everyone was shut. That was it. Later on, about 5 days later, we're watching the army just going down the road past our house, just the big army vehicles, and they were closing off the roads just down the road from us.
Well, you don't mess with the Spanish Gardaí.
No, you don't. No.
Rory, was that over the top? Do you think? Do you think was that nearly like the turn to Franco style stuff, or like?
Yes, that's what we felt at that time. We thought, wow, the army is coming in as well. What's happening, But really after about 3 or 4 weeks, when we settled into it, we started to realize, okay, we can see what's happening. I was always looking at Italy. If I'm honest, Italy was my guideline. What's happening there is going to happen here. And I was following that. So then I think we became more comfortable with it. I found that people after maybe 3, 4 weeks were starting to relax on the whole giving out and saying this is crazy. They were more like going, okay, this is right. Let's do what we're told.
For the first 2 weeks, everyone was going, this is crazy. We can't do this. This is absolutely ridiculous. They can't lock us up. And then after 3 weeks, they were reporting their neighbours if the neighbours went to the bin at a certain time. Like it's funny how quickly everybody's.
Lots of businesses were able to open in May, the beginning of May. So really, we were closed for so long, but businesses are up and running. Even though it's very difficult, we're at least we're up and running and we're making a go of it. We've got a chance. When I see the pubs at home that don't have a chance yet, I just that bugs me. I don't know what's going on there.
It's similar. I'm over here in California, and it's similar in terms of like we've outside dining. Bars can't open at all. It has to be restaurants, but or wine bars. They can open as long as it's outside, and that's working pretty well. And again, the part of America where I am up in the Bay Area, people are very, very good about wearing masks and social distancing and stuff like that. Now, there's other parts of America where it's crazy, obviously. But even despite our goodness, if you like, there still has been, since we reopened, since shelter in place was relaxed, there has been a big spike in cases, But it was nice to have outside dining and be able to get back to some sort of what you think is normality, And last weekend we went to the beach. And the beach was fairly busy down to Santa Cruz, but we met some friends we hadn't seen all during lockdown, and we social distanced on the beach, and people were pretty good, and it was just nice to have that sort of sense of normality, But unlike you guys, I think we haven't seen the worst of it yet. I think the attitude over here, like it seems to be going past tipping point where it's going to go out of control.
Wow.
Just on that, because you mentioned, like you're seeing a few more Irish tourists, and we're being told in Ireland, don't travel. And this green list has been published next week, but they said the travel advisory recommendation not to travel would still be in place, blah, blah, blah. Yet, like you said, there is a feeling of being safer. Certainly you walk into a store, you have to wear a mask, you have to sanitize your hand. They won't let you into the local supermarket if you don't sanitize your hand. But the Spanish government are having, there is outbreaks in other parts of the country, up the Catalonia region, down by Malaga. And the government has very much a local, hands-on approach. So you're very much seeing action from the get-go. Buildings locked down, communities locked down. So it very much seems like there's a plan. Now, we're not seeing any evidence that there's something like that in Ireland, but what's kind of been your thoughts and views of that, of how that's being handled? Do you think there'll be a return to that state of alarm or state of emergency, as they called it, or what's the view on it?
You see, back in the early stages, I think Spain realized, because really the worst of it, the worst of all of this was always in Madrid. That's where the vast majority of the cases have always been. Well, and Barcelona and other countries, but the vast majority was in. The big problem was really Madrid. And then in the early stages, when people from Madrid started moving around and because a lot of people in Madrid have holiday homes on the coast and other parts, when they started moving, that became an issue. They were spreading it. That was in the early stages. Like at the beginning of lockdown, loads of them tried to leave Madrid to get to the coast and get to holiday homes and everything in the first couple of weeks of lockdown. So because that happened, they're very aware of that now, and they know that the local lockdown works. And I think they even realized way back then, if they'd locked down Madrid even a couple of days earlier, it would have been a lot more effective. And also, but Spain's different because we've got regional governments everywhere, and they have a lot of power. They effective, like right now, they make all each region has it. The laws are made by regional government.
So yeah, just to basically in a nutshell, the regional governments here have the authority. They close down their area, and the main government, they can stop. So one town can be just locked down, and that's it. They're trying to contain it now. That's really the plan now.
That.
Rather, they're going to try and everything, of course, to avoid a total lockdown of the whole nation again, which is, it will be a total disaster. How can the economy survive then?
They can't,
that they're going to close down the regions at the moment, this may just work, and it's a good plan, I think.
And with the outbreaks that are happening, then are they being attributed to tourists? Because Spain opened its border to EU tourists, including the UK, which I know was a concern from the 21st of June. So are the outbreaks, being attributed to tourism, or are they being attributed to anything else?
I know the one down south from here it came from South America. They know that for a fact.
And the one up by Barcelona, I believe, is nothing. It's nothing to do with tourists at all. It's just away from the tourist area, I think. So it's when we had, I know, in some parts, again, it was like the foreign farm workers. That's where some of these spikes are, which happened last month on the farm. It was
probably maybe similar to what happened in the meat factories at home. Would it be? That
it sounds like it.
Yeah,
it sounds like it. But it seems like this idea of getting the local, like what we'd call the local authorities, or what used to be the local health boards, to manage it locally, seems to be like a change in process. But it actually sounds like it would work, because you have so many regions and so many centres of commerce, I suppose, in Spain. You're just one resort of 1,000.
I mean, like the restrictions and the rules which apply for us now don't apply for and we kind of border Murcia. We're 15 minutes from the Murcia border. So just the towns just over that border, they actually have different restrictions to us, because it's down to regional governments to decide on laws now.
So literally it's nearly about a 7-minute drive from here. And then you have the different rules, once you go over the border, and 7 minutes from here.
They actually have to have
but we do it. We weren't allowed to go into that region as well when that was. That went into lockdown, a more severe lockdown than us as well at one stage. So they just closed it off completely.
Yeah, so you couldn't travel outside your region, kind of like a county, I suppose it would be at home. But
at
home, I don't know the figures, but I know like the vast majority of the cases were really in Dublin, weren't they? Yeah. So like if to us it seems crazy that people in the west of Ireland and like totally rural areas would have the same restrictions as Dublin, because if you surely the cases, there's a huge
a lot of it here comes
I think when the community spreaders, that's when shutting down Dublin makes sense, whereas like the first case was in Clare, came in from Clare, but like once the first community spread case, that's then, you know, where it makes sense to have a tougher lockdown in Dublin, particularly where I am in Crumlin, specifically because we have the major hospitals here as well. Back in Crumlin, you know, so like you know, but say we're in South Kerry where the Healy Rays would run the roost. You know, it makes sense if they would have a different management plan for you know, for a pandemic. But sure, listen, we are where we are now. There's no fucking end to it at all.
Yeah.
I know.
And tell me, do you guys think if the, you know, the self-isolation on landing in Ireland, you know, that's still in place for the 2 weeks, if that was lifted here, do you think you'd get a lot more visitors?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes,
yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example actually, because they changed the date, and there was originally, was it July the 10th in Ireland?
7th, I think.
July the 7th. But we had people here on holidays. They had just come before that, and they were, and they're assuming that when they went back, then they wouldn't have to quarantine, so they were fine to go back to work. But when they were here, one person, I won't mention names, she got a phone call and she was told they've changed the quarantine now to the 20th of July, so that means you need to come back right now. So they had to cancel the whole holiday early and go back because of her work. It was her employer, of course, told her to go back. So they had to change the whole holiday and go back a week early for the quarantine.
Vanessa, we're actually seeing or hearing anecdotally a lot of that, where we know the public service is saying anyway, you have to take your 2 weeks quarantine out of unpaid leave. And anecdotally, we're knowing that in the private sector, employers, you know, are saying inform your manager. Some employers saying inform your manager if you're going on leave and you will have to quarantine, and something similar about unpaid leave. And that, you know, you're the celebrity accountant here. You talk to people. What are you hearing, feeling, seeing from people? Are people kind of happy staying at home? Do people, you know, we know there's certainly a percentage of people who are eager to go away anyway, and there's those who are fearful. But what's kind of your view on
it? I think I'm not sure people are desperate to go away. I think they're resigned to the fact that 2020 is a write-off. You know, they know their plans are gone. And even as I'm talking to you now, I was supposed to be in Seattle tonight. I was supposed to, you know.
Last week it was Los Angeles. This week it's Seattle. Next week it's going to be Hawaii.
Hang on now, viewers. They're starting out. I was flying into Seattle. I was flying into Seattle, and I was getting the Coast Starlight train down to LA. So there. Wow. And that's all cancelled. Sorry, go back to I think people are resigned to the fact that whatever they had planned is gone. It's over. Whether it's a holiday or a wedding or a get-together or a conference, a weekend away, hen party, everything's gone. And people are resigned to that. And I suspect there is just, as soon as they're saying now there could be vaccination by December. I'd say once people get vaccinated, tourism, flights, business is just going to explode. You know,
I think so.
Because
totally agree.
Yeah, and I think people that necessarily didn't need the repayment holidays, whether it's on their mortgages or loans, but still took them, have built up a bit of cash. And I can speak to that because I've even noticed myself. I filled the tank of diesel first week of March, and I didn't fill it up again till 2 weeks ago. And I mean, that's like 400 quid a month. Or maybe not 300 quid a month. And like, you know, I think people have built up cash, and I've noticed now, even within the credit unions, we're discovering huge amount of people are paying back their loans with the cash they've saved. You know, early redemptions and early payments, and so I think when it lifts, I think when people have the confidence of a vaccine, because at that point then it doesn't matter what isolation or where they go, they have a vaccination, so they have that confidence. But as to 2020, about people having to stay at home, you know, I think they were resigned to that. But once it went into the May bank holiday, I think people were resigned to that at that point. They got as far as Easter, and then he extended it to May. And once it got then into June, I think then everyone realized, forget it, lads. Let's make the most of the rest of the year. But I suspect as soon as the vaccination is out, people are just going to just go for it, you know.
And speaking of money, Vanessa, Pascal today made a few comments about the COVID pandemic payment and the tax liability people are going to have. Now, we've talked about this briefly before, but he very much said today that we will have a tax bill, or people who are getting the payments are going to have a tax bill at the end of the year. And that was never communicated early on.
But Neil, it shouldn't have had to be communicated, because everybody is actually in the tax. Everybody is exposed to tax. No matter what your source of income is, you're exposed to tax. So even if you're just on job seekers, you know, it's still treated as income for tax purposes. But because your credits cover it, you know, your statutory credits that you get every year, it makes you feel you're not paying tax, so you're not exposed. But every penny anyone gets into their pocket is exposed to tax. So I don't understand the idea that it was never taxable. Maybe at the end of the year, when they do their entire income, and they come over the threshold to pay tax and USC, then you know they might realize that they were paying more tax than they would have done had there been no COVID payment and they were just stayed on the labour or part-time working. I don't know, but I don't understand how people assumed it was never going to be taxed, because like I declare my income at the end of the year for the whole year.
The only thing is, Vanessa, I accept completely what you're saying, but the only thing is, not a lot of people are used to just having the tax taken out of their paycheck each week.
Yeah.
And actually, they're going to forget this money all the weeks, and then to be hit with a tax bill at the end, that's going to be completely new for the vast majority of people who receive that payment.
I tell you what is new for people, and if there's any message we get out this evening is, do not forget this. You will have, if your only income has only ever been PAYE earned income, and your employer stopped tax at payroll level, your PAYE and your employees peer assign you USC, and your employer sent it into the revenue. But for the period you were out of work and you were collecting the COVID payment, and your employer you weren't on the payroll scheme, the COVID payroll scheme, you were just getting it through social welfare, the 350 COVID payment. At the end of the year, you will have to fill out a Form 11. It's a Form 11, and you will put in the part of the income you got from social welfare for the year. Let's just say it's €9,000, and you earned 22,000 through your PAYE income, and your employer will have sent in your year end anyway by, I don't know, it's usually around the second week of February, and you may get taxed back, or you may be stopped taxed. It's entirely up to your tax position and the income you earned throughout 2020. If you were collecting the COVID payment that was not through your employer's payroll scheme, then you will have to fill out a Form 11, folks.
But
do not miss that.
The problem is, somebody who has been on the COVID payment, who's relying on that payment, they're unlikely that I'm sure all that was spent on a weekly basis. Like, people living week to week, and if it's going to be very hard for those people who haven't budgeted and said, okay, I think I'm going to owe 20% of this COVID payment at the end of the year, and then come January or whenever the tax bill falls due, if they get hit with 20% of what they've got, and it's going to be very hard for them to find that lump sum.
Well, it will be. But what I would say to anybody that listens to this, and then tell everybody else, just make sure you get in the return first, and you will get a bill back. And let's just say it's for €1,000. In that 1,000 will be your income tax and your USC charge and your PRSI that you underpaid for 2020 based on your entire year's income. You will get an entire year's worth of credits anyway. Okay, so if you do get a bill, just make sure you get the return in, because actually when they go to court, it's because you didn't file the return, right? And then if you get the bill, and let's just say it's €1,000 you own, You just contact revenue and say, well, why don't you take €10 a week out of my credits until it's paid back? It's the cheapest and easiest way to pay it. And revenue will do that sort of arrangement with anybody. Just reduce your tax credits for the period, just for, say, over 2 years for the period of the money. And the tax man will get it back off you that way, without you having to go and find it. Just let them take it off your credits over a period of time. They will cooperate. They will be very generous. I know they will.
Okay. So in Spain, the benefits, like our employees got here, for example, those taxes and were taken from them before they got it. So you know the equivalent of what we would have been paying for them each month. So they got monthly payments. So that was actually taken from them. So they've paid that already. See what I mean? We were always complaining that everyone here was getting way less, but in actual fact, if at the end of the year, if you got to pay tax on it, it's kind of balances out a little bit.
Yeah, maybe people were misled into thinking that social welfare income is not exposed to tax, but every penny that goes into your pocket is exposed to tax. And so most people don't realize that because their income is below all the various thresholds and bars for the deductions. But like the big mistake for people to make is not just to not do the additional return. There's your employer's one, which we used to call the P60. I don't know what it's called anymore. And then your employer will take care of that, but you will have to do a return because you had additional income in the year through social welfare. And even if they do get a whopper of a claim, that they owe, they can negotiate that out over 4 or 5 years. And the cheapest and easiest way to do it, that's the least painful, is to agree for them to reduce your tax credits, like to say by 10 or 15 euro a week. I've done a number of deals with revenue on behalf of clients. They will always get their money. They will always get the money that they are owed, but they're prepared to do it as long as you need, as long as you can. So do it the least painful way, and that's just reduce your credit. Agree to reduce your credit. Like if you owe 1,000 or 1,500 euro and you agree to a tenner a week, that like you reduction in your tax credit, you'll have it paid in a year.
Yeah, and you won't feel
months, no problem. And you won't feel it because you'll see your pay slip every week, and you know. Mm-hmm. That's what I think anyway.
The more you talk about tax, Vanessa, the darker you're becoming there as the sun sets on Reddit.
Yeah.
Have you not paid the electricity and you can turn on a light there?
I have. I have the deck lights on. Hang on, I'll show you.
You have to change the energy. She's in a yurt in British Bay. Illegally squat. While Vanessa is connected to the neighbour's electricity. Derek, I wanted to ask you about education. We're seeing the Leaving Cert has been kicked out.
See the BOCO.
Actually, who needs to be in California or in Alicante when you're
the jet skis.
There you go.
It looks lovely, Vanessa.
It's grand when it's like this, but when there's rain, my God, it's just everywhere. Like it comes in this way, comes in that way. It's miserable, boys. I'm always complaining.
Derek, education, Derek. So the Leaving Cert's been kicked out, pushed out to late September, which means the college places are going to be pushed out as well. And then the sitting of the Leaving Cert, I believe, is October. Okay. What's your thoughts as the head of education for the Broadsheet panel?
I'm uncomfortable with the predicted grade, the way it's being organised. I don't like the idea that they're taking into account the school's previous history and judging this year's cohort on what the previous the trends were in previous years. I'm very, very uncomfortable. I would hate to be sitting in my classroom in Ireland and having to grade my students like from number 1 to number 26, because that just goes against the whole way that I would have taught before, where you would have like tried to make sure everybody maximized their grade. And in any year, you could have like 4, 5, 6 kids who are like have been grade A students all along. You have some who are like, how do you distinguish between those kids who have like they've been amazing for 6 years and they've all was being like 95, 100%, and now I have to rank them 1 to 4 based on what? Because one of them played football with me, or like because like it's just completely subjective. Oh, you're my number 1, you're my number 2. It's not like there was a list of criteria that we had that was there established beforehand. So I'm fiercely uncomfortable with the whole predicted grade thing. Now, if there's justice, I think students will be advantaged. I'd imagine that when students get their grades, everyone should be pleasantly surprised. As in, if you were borderline B or a C, I think you'll probably end up with a B grade, right? Because like, as somebody who I corrected Leaving Cert before, you're always encouraged to advantage the student, right? So if you're thinking, is this paragraph worth a 7 or an 8, then straight away it's an 8. So you always advantage the student was the term used. And I can imagine in this scenario that that's going to be the case as well. So I think when students get their predicted grades, I'm guessing that the vast majority will be probably pleased. But that doesn't do anything for college places, because as you know, the way college places are allocated is based on the points. So I can see that there's going to be like grade inflation, that like points are probably going to rise. And where the disappointment is going to come is when people who have got better leaving certs than they expected, and they don't get the course that they were expecting based on those points. I think that's where the difficulty is going to be. In terms of the delay in releasing them, normally results come out middle of August, maybe the 15th or the 17th of August, that sort of Wednesday, around the 15th, 17th of August, something like that. And the fact that it's pushed back into September, I think is forgivable in the complexity of what they've had to do, and in trying to come up with a scheme to mitigate against what I'm talking about. I know it's very tough on the students to have to wait another 2 weeks to get it right, and that pushes back college. And I know that's a difficulty and a problem. But I think, and I'm not always the first one to give the Department of Education a pass. Trust me, I'm normally one of their biggest critics. But in this regard, I think I could cut them a little bit of slack. I think the results are now going to be the 7th of September, which is what's it 3 weeks later than expected. And given everything that's going on, I think the delay is acceptable. My bigger concern is like the whole process of the predicted grade and what that's going to do for access to third level.
To just ask a theoretical question then, Derek, given that kids have been out of education for so long, formal education for so long, and then we still don't know what that's going to look like later in the year, is there some truth to the theory that, you know, the education muscle, the learning muscle, you know, has been weakened, no different than an athlete training? And what kind of impact is that going to have on kids of all levels going back into the education system?
Okay, so again, this is where the advantage and disadvantage kicks into play massively. I think for a lot of people, a lot of families who education is to the forefront of importance, and a lot of people who have advantage, who have a level of income, or who have a level of interest in some more highbrow cultural activities and so on, or houses where there's lots of books and where people read a lot. I think a lot of those kids are probably experiencing lots of new things, lots of things that they haven't had a chance to experience before because of time pressures, and now there's a bit more freedom, and they're able to explore different things, they're able to pick up new hobbies, maybe learn an instrument, maybe start learning a different language. And for many kids in advantage situations, that'll be nice and be wonderful and be lovely. But the big issue, and when you're talking about muscle memory and like an athlete losing, is for the kids who are already struggling, or the kids who didn't have access to the advantages that I'm speaking about. Kids who didn't get to get extra swimming lessons, or didn't get to go and take piano lessons online or whatever, or kids whose parents don't read to them, or kids who don't have access to books or libraries, who in many senses were probably struggling anyway, and the kids who are struggling anyway are the ones who are going to suffer the most. I think if you're a high pointer, if you're a high achiever in education, I don't think this setback is going to set you back much at all. As I say, it gives you an advantage to try new things, like, as I say, learn a language or whatever, or write a book, or create a song, or make a podcast, whatever. And there's lots of kids who are in a position to do that. But it's the kids who need the school system the most are the ones who suffer most.
But just in terms of Spain here, is it this, because your daughter has done the Spanish, or is doing this Spanish equivalent of the Leaving Cert? Has it been chaos here? Is the same uncertainty here, or have you had a different experience?
Yeah, it's better speaking on this one.
So our eldest daughter just did the Spanish equivalent of the Leaving Cert here last week, actually. So she should have taken that around the beginning, first or second week of June. All her classes, we were really lucky with her school, so they did all her classes online from the minute lockdown started. She had Zoom classes every day, and classes continued and everything. It was really good. Her teachers were good. And then she had Easter holidays, and for about 2 weeks there was a bit of uncertainty around over Easter, maybe the first week back after Easter. There was a bit of uncertainty, and were the exams going to happen, weren't they? And that was, well, for us, with her, that was the worst 2 weeks, because she was demotivated, depressed, everything. Like, that was it was terrible, because she just kept saying, these exams aren't going to happen. She didn't want to work. She had nothing to aim for, whatever. So anyway, literally beginning of May, school, it was actually, again, it was kind of regional and down to each school, but it was down to the school to organize it themselves, but central government said, no, these are happening, the exams are happening, let's go ahead. That was the beginning of May, or early May anyway. They said the exams are going ahead. And funny, the minute she was told, I could see with her and her friends, that the exams are going ahead, again, she changed again, snapped back into action, focused, concentrated.
The study, everything.
Yeah, and we were all stuck at home. It was something for her to focus on, to aim for, to do something. And her Zoom classes were all her school classes were on Zoom online every day, strictly a strict timetable, everything. Again, the school was fantastic. So then, for the last 2 weeks of June, the Leaving Cert, shall we say, her year, final year of school, could go back to school for classes, for revision classes, but those classes were not mandatory, so they could choose whether to go or not. Most kids did go, and it was really, because they actually had the whole school to themselves, and there was lots of space and social distancing, and there was a lot of the time the teachers could do one-to-one with them, whatever. And then, as I say, the exams happened last week as normal in big halls, or whatever, public buildings, with 2 meters distance between each desk, and with each student wearing a mask, which they strictly couldn't take off. So they finished their exams last Wednesday, and she got her results on Monday, like 5 days later.
So
And how did she get on? Was she happy?
Did really well. Yeah, she did really well. But unfortunately, she did really well. But what she really wants to do is go to university in Ireland. So she still has to wait to see what college place she will get there. So she's dependent on. She's also applied in Spain as well, but really she really wants to go to Ireland. So
I'm fascinated by the turnaround in when she finished the exams, and she has them like less than a week later.
Yeah,
The results a week later. I'm wondering, are the exams like? Is it more like the SATs in the States, where it's like you fill in, like, ticking boxes type exams, like, or and they can be fed into a machine, or was there essay-based exams as well, like where it's like a 3-hour written exam where it's all handwriting, or is it like, I forget what's called, the other way you can do you can do some exams. It's like a lottery slip where you put it into a machine and you get the results out. Because I'm just curious as to like the way the exams work in Spain.
The format,
like,
you mean?
The format is the word I'm looking for. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it, but the the actual exam that she takes is probably a combination of both. There are some like tick the boxes and fill in, but it's tough. Like
No,
the
she
standards really
definitely
high. But
she
there's
writing out a
there's
lot of stuff.
there's
Essay
essays
stuff
as well.
definitely. Yeah. She was
Yeah.
it's a mix of stuff.
Yeah, Rory's big into
So-
education.
so-
Writes a lot.
I remember
I'm
this bit.
Take the boxes can be every bit as difficult. Like a lot of the SAT exams over here are like tick the boxes, but you have to work out the calculations or whatever. You have a workload and you do it out. So I'm not saying that tick the boxing is easier. I'm not trying to downplay the difficulty level of the exam at all.
You
Not
mean
at all.
the format? Yeah.
Just because I'm thinking like my subject was history, and like say I as an examiner you would have to correct like 400 scripts, and each script would have like you could with the history exam you could be talking like somewhere between 30 and 50 pages of writing to correct in 400 scripts, and like that just wouldn't be possible to do in a 5-day turnaround, because you have to do batches and you send it off to make sure you're correcting correctly, and there's quality control and so on. So normally it takes about 26 days for corrections in Ireland. There's 26 days laid out for the corrections. So I'm just fascinated by the speed of the turnaround, that it could be finished last week and get the results this week.
I don't know. I think you're cutting us there now.
Yeah.
If the Spaniards could turn it around in a week, and then
With certain
and they even go for siestas, they can even
Like
take a
this is
siesta.
it.
You'd be
started.
surprised, but they can be quite efficient in some areas. Honestly.
Yeah.
and
I'm just
I
really curious. I'm just really curious.
I'm really curious as to why sorry, going back to it again, I know Neil's already asked you, but with the delay with the Leaving Cert results, like if it's predictive grades and they haven't gone to class since March, why do they have to wait
Why does it
another
take so
few
long?
weeks?
I know. And all the grades
no.
are in since June.
I mean,
Yeah,
you're right. I mean, you're right. I mean, it is when you say it that way, that it's gone since March. It is ludicrous in that regard. As Vanessa says, I think the teachers got their grades in by June, but there's just so much. There's so much paperwork involved, and that's why I'm so fascinated by how the Spanish is going to
Stop
so quickly.
cutting us.
Like I had a rant last week about teacher bashing, and
You walked into it. You put your hand down for it there, love.
I think part of the problem is that they're trying to do the things that I'm objecting to. They're trying to see what was the school's previous history in this exam, what was the gender previous history in this exam, because it's not just that they're accepting the teacher's grade. They have this statistical model that they're working around based on gender, based on locality, based on school, and so on. So,
Would it not just be easier for them to just do the Leaving Cert?
Oh, I guess. I bet. Yeah, I bet. And yeah, 100%. Look, I say I'm living over in California, so I'm away from it. I'm just looking from afar,
Handing all the answers to you.
I don't have the answers, but but the whole idea of the predicted grade. I remember I worked in a school near where Vanessa lives in Crumlin, and we had a couple of students one year, a very disadvantaged school, but we 2 A1s in higher level English. The following year, they had the same teacher, but he had no honours student at all. And the year before, he had no honours student at all. So I wonder how those two kids, how their grade would have been affected going on the history of what went before, and because they're in a disadvantaged school. I think kids like that could really suffer under this predicted grade system. And conversely, somebody who's in a very affluent school where there's normally lots of high level results, they might find themselves getting a boost into their grade artificially. So I'm just concerned. I don't like. One of the beauties about the Leaving Cert is you're just a number. Nobody knows who you are. You put your number on the form, and it's corrected totally anonymously, and you get a score back. There's not fairness to that, but there's a beauty to it as well in that it doesn't. You can't influence it. Like who your father is, who your mother is, what your address is. It doesn't matter. You're just based on a number. And now what we have now is they're taking into account things like your gender, things like your school location, things like past history of your school. And like, I'm uncomfortable with anything that isn't open and transparent. You know, anything there's anything that, you know, that's fully, that worries me. And openness and transparency, the more openness and transparency there is, the better. You know, and I think I think they're really concerned about, you know, legal implications and the possibility of being sued, because I mean I think the people who are licking their lips over this whole scenario are the lawyers, because there's no doubt that we're heading for the High Court over the next few weeks and months. You know.
Yeah.
We did have the first challenge to the Leaving Cert results. Was it last year or the year before? Where a student, her grade, she asked for a recorrection, and she got the upgrade in the recorrection, but she was too late with the CAO, and she successfully sued. And she was right, because it was the course she wanted. So she was denied her course. But I don't know, like you're saying there about the number and nobody knows who's who and what's what. But I mean, there you have to accept, Eric, that there are some students that have more advantage than others.
Oh yeah. And
despite the fact that they're anonymous. And I'm not sure numbers are all that anonymous anyway.
Oh, the numbers are anonymous, but you're right that if a child has had an advantage all their life, right, and that advantage shows up in their exam performance, right, and so the big mistake people make is people think that the Leaving Cert is some sort of test of intelligence, and it's not a test of intelligence at all. I've had some really.
So why did you all make us do it so?
It's not a test of intelligence. It's a test of who's going to put the work in.
How can you remember?
It's not even a memory test. That's
what I remember.
That's wrong as well. Like, look, I put it this way.
Yeah, but to Derek, you keep saying.
Hang on a second. Let me finish this. Let's say you get 475 points in your Leaving Cert, right? And I get 480. Does that make me 5 points more intelligent than you? Or does it mean that you happen to answer one question in one paper better than I did? Because you remembered something that I didn't remember on that day. Or maybe I had the sniffles, or maybe my girlfriend broke up with me the night before and I didn't perform as well in the test. It's rubbish. I'm telling you this, right? Anybody who gets 6 C's on Leaving Cert papers is capable of doing any course in university, because that's the way it used to be. Some of the surgeons in the top hospitals in Ireland, like if they qualified in the 1970s before
three points
before when it was just the matriculation. But once you got to qualifications, entered university, your Irish, English, your maths, and a couple of honours, you could walk up to Trinity or UCD and you could pick your subject. That's the way it used to be, right? But what happened is there was like more people were going to college, so it's supply and demand, so many college places, so they needed a system to see, okay, who's going to get the places, and they came up with this point system, right? And then it became like really prestigious to get high points, and right now, don't get me wrong, if you're getting 6 A's in your Leaving Cert, you're a bright kid. I'm not like, there's no doubt about that. But there's lots of bright kids who don't get 6 A's because they don't put the work in. There's plenty of people who can get 6 A's in their Leaving Cert because they work their socks off. And anybody who the Leaving Cert, as it stands, rewards hard work. It's not simply a memory test. That's a misnomer. It's too easy to say that. The curriculum has changed so much that there's a lot of the questions that you have to answer in history or in English or even in the maths papers, it's you have to be able to adapt your knowledge to be able to answer the question, and you're rewarded for being able to think on your feet, right? So it's not fair to say it's just a memory test, but the people who put the work in get the grades year in, year out.
But there is technique as well, Derek. There is an exam technique you could teach.
Of course, and that's part of putting the work in, right? And this is where what your point about like the unfairness is built into our society. Like the Leaving Cert, it's by itself is fair because everyone goes in, does the same exam, and they're just a number. It's corrected anonymously. You get back what the examiner thinks what your answers deserve, right? But the unfairness is built into the inequality in our society, where that the privileged kids, the kids who have parents who encourage them and make sure to do their work and make sure they study and make sure that they get help if they need it, right? If you're growing up and your parents are making sure you're getting help every step of the way as you need it, right? You're going to perform really well in Leaving Cert, better than somebody who might be more intelligent than you, who doesn't have that sort of caring, supportive environment, you know. And that's just it. And like there's this notion that like, you know, your points total says something about your ability. It doesn't, right? It just doesn't. Now, somebody with low points total in their Leaving Cert often struggle in college because they haven't got the work ethic. They haven't got they're not. If you're getting low points in your Leaving Cert, it's because you haven't put the work in, right? And then you go to college and you're by yourself, and because you're not used to putting the work in, then you struggle. It's not because the course is too difficult or the course is too hard, right? It's because you're not used to put the work in. The kids who are getting the 500, 600 points, they're workers, and that's why they can cope with like really intense courses because they're used to putting the work in, and that's it as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but Derek, I know.
Yeah.
Hey, a sec there. Derek used about can I just say, there is no absolute guarantee that the department don't send a clutch of numbers into Zaga and they know those numbers, you know, for students.
That's
because they apply through the school.
That's real corruption then. That's
no, but I mean, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. But you know, the point system is a consequence of free education, because up until when free education came in, was it 67, 68? More and more people were staying on at school, and then they just, as you say, you just had to matriculate, and you could pick any course in an Irish university.
Yeah.
And then when suddenly everyone wanted to do veterinary and med,
yeah,
they had to, you know, they had to cap the places.
As a way of keeping the plebs out, I suppose, you know, because it used to be that you know, people thought education was wasted on the poor. Like you go back and look at all debates or whatever, you will see people saying like, you know, there's some people aren't cut out for college, you know, and giving free education is just a waste of resources, right? Now, and don't get me wrong, plenty of people, there should be other routes that people who don't want to go to college, like, you know, I know plenty of people who have done carpentry and bricklaying who've made a fortune, and they're far wealthier than I am, and good luck to them, you know.
Do we have a minister who dropped out of college looking after higher education?
He did all right. He did all right himself. And come here, do you know who else was a history teacher, Derek? Micheál Martin. Micheál Martin. He's done all right for a history teacher.
He has, yeah. He has. Actually, speaking of which, right? We spoke about these guys last week, right? And we said, "You'd fall our back, baby," right?
Oh yeah.
And like they're the gift that keeps on giving, right? I mean, he's in, he's out. Shake it all about.
Yeah,
you know,
but he was.
Well, Micheál's not tuned in tonight because he's packing his bag for Brussels tomorrow. The word on the street is that he's not going to be quarantining on his return. I
Not
that
even
was
the virus would touch him.
that was the rumor I heard. I didn't see a confirmed source. So will he quarantine? Will he quarantine on his return for 14 days?
Well, he has a holiday home. He can
Will
do a
Brussels
married
magically
quarantine there.
Belgium magically appear on the list on Monday?
I'm
well,
sure he
listen.
can be tested.
Look at like he's a ditherer anyway. You know, he takes weeks to make a decision on anything. So he'll hum and haw about self-isolating now for about 2 weeks. It'd be too late.
But on that,
The smoking ban, Vanessa, the smoking ban.
on that, Vanessa, on him being a ditherer, right?
You and your smoking ban.
On him being a ditherer, when I saw he fired Cowan, I actually had the thought for, I'd say about 30 seconds, wow, this could be the making of Micheál Martin's Taoiseach ship. I thought like he might be establishing his authority. You know, I was going like, just fair play to him. Unlike a Fianna Fáil Taoiseach to be so decisive, and it appears
Darragh
that
got his way. Darragh Calleary got his way in the end, didn't he?
As soon as I saw that, I thought, Derek, you were a very silly man to think that he had found a pair of balls somewhere, you know.
Yeah.
He's because Darragh's happy, and seemingly there's more to come from this Cowan scandal. It's like, what did Martin know and when did he know it? You know.
I think it's probably water under the bridge now at this stage. They're just going to have to let them get on with their jobs. And like I think at the moment now, that broke this evening is about them falling asleep this afternoon in the National Conference Centre. They have to wake up, lads. They had to wake. Lads were snoring. They had to wake up. Eamon Ryan to vote no against the Soc Dems.
Are you serious?
To show you. And Matty McGrath was snoring away.
Oh my God!
Would it be great if he was talking in his sleep? I wonder what he'd be saying.
Derek, I noticed you don't have the Hamilton backdrop this week. Have you lost flavour with Hamilton? Oh, would you look?
Listen.
Just like my country, I'm young, scrappy, and hungry. You will not take away my shot.
Hazel, Rory, did you watch anything? What were you binging in lockdown? What was your TV pick or your Netflix pick?
I thought you were on about the wine, Muga wine. Yeah, no, you did, didn't you? You kind of went into watching a lot of telly for, well, I did anyway, but I know asking a lot of people, they've done the same thing. You binge in it for about 2 weeks or 10 days, and then you just stopped, then leave it for 2 weeks. So I'd done something Survivor, Designated Survivor. It was one.
Designated Survivor. Oh, that's what Kiefer
Designated Survivor. That's correct. Yeah, I watched all of that in a blitz. I think it's like 60 episodes.
Did you watch Hamilton? Derek's obsessed with Hamilton.
I never heard of it. What is it?
Yeah, do you know what? You'll do all right by yourself by staying that way. 2 hours. 2 hours and 40 minutes.
I'll start singing now, Vanessa. I'll start singing. It's
no, did you? Because nobody will know the songs anyway.
Oh, that's scandalous. That is scandalous. It's a hit musical. Right? It is scandalous thing to say. These are classics. These are unbelievable. It's a Broadway musical. It's available on Disney Plus. It's looking at one of the founding fathers of the United States, Alexander Hamilton. He's on the $10. He's a $10 founding father, and it's just telling his life story from a sympathetic point of view. But the music is all rap. It's all rap music, and the characters, these founding fathers, are people of color, and the music is it's unreal. And it's been a smash hit for the last 5 years on Broadway, in the West End in London, and it has toured all over Europe, also all over the States. It's the best musical since Les Miserables.
I think he's going to cry. Derek's going to start crying now in a second. Vanessa, did you watch that? That wasn't Hamilton related. Did you watch that?
Well, actually, the teenager put on Hamilton. I did say I'd give it another go, right? And it was in, and it was 8 minutes in, 9 minutes in, and I was going, oh Jesus! And I was picturing myself having to sit there for another 2.5 hours. It's 2 hours 40 minutes long, lads. I think and anyway, didn't the Volkswagen crash? And I was never so thrilled. It didn't get.
There was another popular one was Tiger King, which is totally different.
Oh, we all watched that.
Holy
Joe.
man, we had to watch
Joe.
that. So everyone said you have to watch it, so I did.
Yeah, we watched that.
The first half hour, I was fascinated because like he was treating the tigers like they were like
Crazy
little cats, and I was going, this is mad. But after the first half an hour, like the first half an hour got me, and I watched it through to the end, and I was so sorry I did. Like half an hour was enough for that, you know. The rest of it was just like.
I just felt I had to watch it then.
That's it.
One of the Dublin chain of cinemas, or one of the cinemas in Dublin, Omniplex. Obviously cinemas are reopening, but there's no movies because Hollywood hasn't been shooting. So they've started, and this is not a sponsored post or anything like that. They are showing screenings of classic films as if they're new releases. So they have a screening of Superman that I think was on or is currently on, which is kind of nice that you can see these old classic films as if they're coming out for the first time, if that's your thing. And maybe that's a chance for Derek to see, you know, a proper movie, and Vanessa to educate herself on, you know, more interesting. I was watching
Superman. To educate myself on Superman.
Neil,
come here, the sun is getting to you there. I've just noticed, Neil. I see you're not a wax man.
A wax man? Oh no, not at all. Not at all. I wouldn't know what to be doing with that.
Come here, Rory and Hazel. How long are you guys out there?
I'm 20 years.
20 years, lads.
20, yeah.
Yeah, we met here actually. Yeah.
We met.
Did you?
It was here. Hazel worked here when it first opened in 1999.
Love.
Yeah.
And then I came, and then as soon as she saw me, that was it.
She couldn't keep her hands off you.
Yeah.
What's the best?
You're asking about films. You know, of course, my history of films.
Of course, I know my history of films there.
No, you know my history in films. You know, I was in two films. Two Oscar winners.
Hang on now, the ones at home now aren't.
Two Oscar winner films. One was called Braveheart, and one was called Saving Private Ryan.
Were you in the FCA?
I was in the FCA, yeah. I was in the FCA. Here we go. Let me show you.
Oh, he's going to show us the pictures.
I'll go on.
There I am. There in with Tom Hanks. There's
hang on. I think Steven Spielberg's trying to join the Zoom. He wants to say a few words about Derek.
There was me when I was a snapper. And there's Tom Hanks.
Oh
wow. Now, so celebrity accountant. There you go.
Celebrity history teacher is your new title.
Well, if anyone wants to cast me in a movie,
well, there was a movie with Ben Affleck, All the Accountants.
Rory copped it right. At FCA, Reserve Defence Forces.
That's right.
Get your free pair of boots.
3-star private, you know. I thought when I came over to California 4 years ago, I thought this is my chance now, you know. Somebody's going to snap me up as I'm walking through the airport. But I've aged. I think I've missed my chance, you know.
Well, Alan Rickman was 41 when he got. Oh well, no, you're still missed your chance. Sorry, Derek.
Oh Lord.
Right, so come here. We're getting near the witching hour. Your predictions for the next 7 days, Derek. What are we going to be talking about next week?
Oh, I say this every week, more of the same. Do you know what's really annoying me actually? The amount of people who are building Man United up to be some sort of a new force, they're absolutely rubbish. And I want to get that out there. But listen to the commentators on Sky Sports or NBC. They're making Man United out to be like the next big thing. You know? Oh! I knew he was a good boy.
I'll send you over one.
Rory, you don't support any of the Spanish teams, no?
No, not really. No. No, Liverpool's my team. Years ago, I did have a I used to be a season ticket holder with Real Murcia, but they got relegated out of the main league about 10 years ago.
You must be used to that, Ross. Come here.
No, we don't get promoted to get relegated. No.
I was live on this on Broadsheet on Telly. I was live on this when Chelsea beat Man City and we clinched the title. So I was a little bit distracted.
Crying.
I was
crying.
I was cheering. I was like, oh, go on the Reds, you know.
Do you remember
that?
Do you remember that when Stan Boardman, the comedian, the Liverpool comedian, scored a goal, and he was running around the pitch, you know, some celebrity soccer match, and he was running around the pitch like crying and doing the lap of honor and everything. That was Derek a few weeks ago here. He was
yeah, I don't blame him. Yeah.
Singing and everything.
Vanessa, predictions for the week?
Probably the same as last week when I said it'll be all about Fianna Fáil again. I think it'll be there'll be a few things happening in Fianna Fáil again over the next week. I'd say Cowan will go quietly. I don't think he's going to cause trouble, but I suspect.
Has anyone heard any sort of a story about Cowan and greyhounds? Because I got some kind of from my mother, and she says it involves greyhounds. I don't know.
Yeah, no, he had a greyhound and he bred her 8 times in a very short spell, a very short period of time, like way beyond animal cruelty. And it goes back about 10 years, I think. The story, it all happened about 10 years ago. But you know, once he's a news item, it all comes out. You know, I personally think the whole cow thing was a non-story. I don't think it was newsworthy enough. I think the Roderick O'Gorman situation that arose, and then there was the protest last Saturday. Which I think was a bit misguided because they were focusing on his photograph with Peter Patchen, when I think probably his view on under 16s transitioning is probably a far more important debate instead of just picking on this thing. I'm not sure the Cowan thing. Okay, he's gone now, and Cleary got the job he wanted from day one. There's a rumor going around, and it came to me from a very credible source that Micheál Martin offered Barry Cohen the chief Swift job, and he turned it down. And he pretty much said, who the fuck do you think you are? I want a ministry. So he gave him Mag, and then Derek Leary had to make do with Whip. And I always felt the source of the story was never really Thomas Byrne. I always felt it was higher up the chain. But wherever we are,
Thomas
Cleary
Byrne,
got the job he wanted.
What has come out about Thomas Byrne?
Huh?
What has come out about Thomas Byrne, though? He has come out badly. He's badly damaged by this whole scenario with the 1:30 a.m. phone call or text message or whatever it was. And,
but that was a piss head at 1 o'clock in the morning. That's why I felt that it was higher up the hierarchy. The story was the main source. A fella drinking or making calls at 1 o'clock in the morning, I never really bought. But having said all that, I think there's probably going to be more news. I think Fianna Fáil are still going to be in the news for the next week. And there isn't a word. Like Fine Gael are getting on with it, you know. The Greens are getting on with it, you know. So it's, I'd say there's more to come on this one. I think another thing is the cost of holidaying at home. I think that might start to get a bit more traction. That's not just social media giving out, you know, photographs of hotels for 1,700 a night and stuff like, or 1,700 for 2 or 3 days for a family. I think that's going to come more mainstream. And maybe we might get some more good weather. I don't know. We know.
On that note,
Your predictions?
My predictions are we won't hear anything from Sinn Féin, and no doubt Fianna Fáil will be in the news again. And the travel quarantine thingy will certainly not have gone away. I'd say something will explode with that. I don't think Micheál, unless he quarantines after his trip to Brussels, is going to get away with that.
And the green list?
The green list. Who's going to be on the green list? That's going to be like a VIP invite to a party in Vanessa's house. Who's on the list?
What's the green list? Did I miss something?
Which countries? Is that which countries?
Oh, travel
Countries are.
I mean, you hear rumors that it's going to be very small. I mean, in one hand, I might say it could be Scandinavia and obscure countries that Irish people don't holiday to. Depending on the Spanish figures, I know some of the figures have been published. And they have backlog numbers in it, which make it look a lot worse than it actually currently is. But when you look at the per 100,000 cases, you know, Spain is doing pretty well. And actually the UK's figures have improved as well, and there's still a long way to go. So it'll be interesting to see how they split hairs with how they present those figures, but however. On that note, I just want to give a big thanks to Hazel and Rory for taking time out and
Great to see you, Hazel and Rory.
Nice talking to you.
Can I, Neil, before you talk us out, can I ask Hazel and Rory, what's their biggest seller in the bar?
The biggest seller?
it's in the basement.
In the summer, well, wine. Wine is one of our biggest sellers. White wine.
Tinto de Verano.
And Tinto de Verano is up. But wine would be, yeah, and then beer. Beer,
Local
of course.
Beer.
Local beer.
Our local
Estrella.
beer is Estrella, yeah.
Oh, very good. Okay.
But yeah, lots of wine too.
And then now I suppose cocktails are very popular now again this time of the year. So with the warm weather, cocktails.
Gin sales are
They
up
go
now.
down nice.
Neil is here.
Do you know what, Neil? You should have a chat with them about the Christmas do.
We'll have a chat about the Christmas do afterwards. We haven't even survived summer yet, Vanessa. We'll talk Christmas parties. So Derek, I don't know who, the King of California, the Duke of wherever, the mattress of whatever you want to call it. The silicon implant. That's it.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Derek, thanks. I can't remember how we sign off now.
Yeah. Not me abusing me. I typically sign off by me getting abuse. That's
Oh Lord, here we go.
He's not the mattress.
It's the weaker county syndrome.
The celebrity history teacher, as he now wants to be known. He once was in a photograph with Tom Hanks.
Yeah. I'll tell that story.
A big thanks to celebrity accountants. Vanessa's going to invoice Broadsheet for that tax advice she gave earlier, no doubt. Queen of Crumlin, thanks very much, Vanessa. Hazel and Rory here on the Costa Blanca. We'll be back next week, and thanks for tuning in, and bye.
Night, everyone.